Hello everyone, today I'll be making depression cake, or war cake, or wacky cake, or as I like to call it, quarantine cake. It first came about in the Depression in the 1920s when there was very few supplies around because America was in debt and it was really just hard to find simple supplies like eggs, milk, and butter. So he decided to create a chocolate cake that has very few ingredients and doesn't use too many of the ingredients that were hard to find. And it also came about again in World War II when supplies were scarce and rationing was in effect. And I decided it's kind of relevant in today's world because, as we know, some things are hard to find like flour, but that is included in the recipe. Anyways, let's just go ahead and get started. We're gonna start by adding 1 1/2 cups of flour to a bowl, and we're just gonna go ahead and pour it in. And we're also gonna add 1 cup of sugar and 1/4 cup of unsweetened cocoa powder. And finally, we're gonna need right here a teaspoon of baking soda and 1/2 teaspoon of salt, so in it goes. And we're just gonna go ahead and whisk it together. We're gonna want to make sure it's very thoroughly combined because we want all of our baking soda to be mixed in so that our mixture rises properly once it is baked. And you also want to whisk it thoroughly because, as you can see, there's a lot of clumps of cocoa powder, but that'll also come out when we add our wet ingredients, which is the next step. Alright, now we're going to add 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract to our dry mixture. So here we go, in it goes. And also to that, we are also going to add some white vinegar. This is 1 teaspoon of white vinegar. It actually smells quite strong, but we're also going to go ahead and add 1/3 cup of oil. And we're also going to add 1 cup of water, which I find kind of interesting. I think it's because it was hard to find milk during the Depression, so they had to settle for water instead. So now we're just going to go ahead and use our whisk to whisk this up. And it should be a fairly thin cake batter, so we're not going to have problems with like dough getting stuck or batter getting stuck in our whisk. So as you can see, it's very thin and very light, and it is a little bit chunky, so we're going to have to mix this in thoroughly. But we have to also be careful to not overmix our batter, because that will make our batter tough, or our cake tough rather. Ooh, it smells so good. You know, I was a little skeptical about the vinegar, but I think that's to help make the cake rise, but it smells so chocolatey. It doesn't look super dark or chocolatey, it has kind of a light texture in my opinion, or color rather, but it smells so rich and chocolatey. It must be from all that delicious cocoa powder, but I'm just going to go ahead and transfer it to our baking dish right now. I have it right here. I decided to grease it, and I also added some parchment paper, which is also greased. I'm just going to go ahead and put my whisk on our plate, and I'm just going to use a spatula. I'm going to use this one. It's a silicone spatula, and it's very trusty. I'm going to add that to our baking dish. I'm just going to go through one more time and mix it up with our spatula to make sure the sides and at the bottom all the flour is combined into the wet ingredients. And now that looks pretty well mixed to me, so we're just going to go ahead and pour this in to our baking dish. And we're just going to scrape our bowl because we want to get all of that cake out, or that cake batter out. Alright, now we're going to put our batter in our oven. Our oven is set to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. So let's just go ahead and put this in. But first I'm going to want to pull out our rack so it's easier to put in. Because I actually know a friend that was making some food and he didn't pull the rack out all the way and he tried to put his food in and he totally burned his arm. And it was very painful and it lasted for a few months. But there we go. We're just going to want to center it on the rack. And then we're just going to push this in. And I'm going to go ahead and close our oven up, and we're just going to bake it for 30 to 35 minutes, but I'm going to start it at 33 minutes. Alright, our timer just went off, so I'm going to go ahead and check it. So this recipe is kind of interesting, and I'll tell you what I mean by that. As I take it out, it smells nice. It doesn't smell extremely chocolatey, or as chocolatey as the batter was when I mixed it up, now that it's baked into a cake. It smells pretty good. It has a mild chocolate scent, and it almost smells like baking flour, and it smells pretty good. I'm gonna get a toothpick here, and they said that the toothpick should not come clean. It should come with a few crumbs on the end. So let's just go ahead and check it. You know, I don't think that's done yet, because as you can see, this isn't crumbs, this is just gooey mush. So I'm just gonna go ahead and put it back in for maybe another 5 more minutes. Alright, let's just go ahead and check our cake now. It's been 5 more minutes. Oh no! See, it came out clean. That's normally what you want, but apparently not for this cake. So it might be a little bit on the dry side, but I'm just gonna go ahead and let it cool in our baking dish before trying it. Alright guys, I was getting kind of worried that this might cook some more in our baking dish, so I'm just gonna go ahead and take it out like this by grabbing all 4 sides and place it on a cooling rack to cool. And then we can also eat it a little bit sooner also. Alright guys, our cake has now cooled down, so I transferred it to a cutting board. I'm just gonna go ahead and dust it with powdered sugar. And this is just to give it a little extra sweetness and a little extra flair. I'm just gonna go ahead and cover this whole cake, and that should be enough now, because we don't want it too sweet. Alright, let's just go ahead and try this cake now. Can't wait. Oh wow. That is amazing. Surprisingly, this is probably one of the best chocolate cakes I've ever had, believe it or not. There's one other recipe that I used a lot when I was younger and I made chocolate cupcakes. That was also very good. But this is amazing. Love it. It's super fluffy, and surprisingly, it is not too dry. So I do recommend the full 38 minutes. Has a perfect density. It's not too dry. It's very moist. It's very fluffy. And the top has a nice crust on it. It's not too burnt. And it is a little bit on a sweeter side for the powdered sugar. But next time I'll just add less. And yeah, I really enjoy it. So I really do recommend you try out this depression cake recipe because I thoroughly enjoyed it.